Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm back with a store visit. Yes, the first of several store visits, because my wife and I recently went on a Christmas vacation. At the time I'm recording this, we just got back from it. We drove down to Christmas City, USA, which is Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we went to Hershey Park, and then we came back and did a couple other things. But the important thing is, while we were there, we went to a bunch of comic stores, and there are a bunch of comic stores in the Bethlehem area and in Allentown. There's a whole cluster of comic stores, and then there's several comic stores down near Hershey as well. And so this first one is going to be first look at some of the ones that we got to in the Bethlehem Allentown area. Now, I should say we didn't get to all of them. Some of the stores were closed at the days that we were going around, and then also there were just a few that were kind of like a little bit the wrong direction. But in that general area, just the Bethlehem Allentown, I think there's like 7 different comic stores. Well, we're gonna have 2 of them today. We're gonna have the Portal Comics and Games, which is in Bethlehem, and then over, I don't know if it's in Allentown itself or if it's in the close by town, but the Comic Masters Inc. And we're going to clump those 2 together because they're both cool stores, but I actually didn't buy too much from them. So I've got just a little bit of video from the outside, just to let you know, setting up these next several store visit videos that I've got. I didn't really get any video inside any of them. But we got a little bit on the outside of Portal Comics and Games. And it's more games than comics. A lot of cool games. They're having a big convention, like not convention, but like a tournament while we were there. They have a few boxes of comics, including some dollar bins, or rather they're 50-cent bins. So I did get a couple things while I was there that I'm going to show you here, but ended up not getting too much. So, I mean, it's definitely worth stopping after you go into Bethlehem because there's a lot of cool stuff to see in Bethlehem. It was only a mile from our hotel. And again, they have a lot of cool gaming stuff. Let me just show you the stuff I did get out of the 50-cent bins. The thing about the 50-cent bins I also wanted to mention is if you're into newer comics, they had quite a few like major titles in there. There was a number of issues of Avengers, for instance, Superman. So a lot of like top mainstream Marvel and DC books for 50 cents each. So I almost bought some of those just to read them because I don't really keep up with anything new going on in the big 2 superheroes. But what I ended up getting was, first of all, it's Runaways number 22. I don't know which volume, but as a romance comic fan, I just liked this romance cover here. So I got that. And then I also got The Death of Nancy Drew from Dynamite, part 6. So I know this is a story. It's a Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys team up there. It's called The Death of Nancy Drew, and it's by Anthony Del Cole and Joe Eisma. I've heard the names before. So again, for 50 cents, this is right in my wheelhouse. You know, my comic, the Crimebusters that I do, is sort of an homage to things like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. So it's the sort of thing I'm interested in. And for 50 cents, even though I'm jumping in part 6, why not? Give it a taste. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll pick up the rest. Those are the only comics I bought at the first store, but I did buy a couple other things. It's going to be in a separate video. But one thing that I always like to support the comic book stores that I go to, but they don't always have stuff that I want to buy because, as you know, I'm very particular. I have very strange and specific back issue needs. So what I decided this time to do to support the stores that I couldn't find comics in that I wanted was I decided that I would buy some packs of Lorcana. That's the new collectible card game from Disney. So it's like Magic the Gathering, sort of, but with Disney characters and like Disney theming and stuff. I've never played it, and I've never bought any of the cards, so I bought 3 packs of that here. It's really hard to find right now at the time I'm recording this. They underestimated the demand and short printed everything, so everything's really hard to find, and the packs are, you know, like overpriced because just the market stuff. So I did buy some packs of that. I'm gonna have a separate video where I open those packs live, so you can see what I got. So that'll be a bonus video midweek. It won't be one of my regular videos because I'm not sure anyone cares about that. But those are the only comics I got there. If you're in Bethlehem, though, again, definitely worth driving around. Spend a day going to all the comic stores because there's so many of them, and you might find something fun there. Now, the next comic store that we're going to be going to is Comic Masters Inc. Now, this is in a mall, or it's like a semi-mall. It looks like a strip mall, but there's one section where you can go inside, and there are like internal entrances to a bunch of the stores, and one of the stores in there is this comic book store. And I have to say, even though I only bought one thing at the store, something really goofy that I'll show you in a second, they had a lot of cool stuff. I knew they were going to have cool stuff because I looked at their website, and their website had like a link to their eBay site. And on eBay, they were selling a lot of big books. Like, I don't know, they had an X-Men #1 for sale. So I knew they were going to have good stuff. They did have a lot of big keys, a lot of good back issues. And the Silver Age stuff that they had out was actually priced quite well. A lot of stores I go into these days, they'll have something where like they have anything that's Silver Age, it's like $15 or something, even if it's just low grade, pointless, random issue. If it's old, it's expensive. Not this place. This place, they had some Silver Age stuff I was seeing for like $6 and stuff like that. So they had a lot of good stuff, a lot of big keys, very well priced. But what they didn't have was the stuff that I was looking for. The romance. They had some Archie, but I'm looking for the older Archie. I'm looking at stuff from like 1960 and earlier. And, offbeat stuff, like just weird stuff. It's a store that everything's alphabetized. That makes it harder for me to just stumble upon weird things because I have to know what I'm looking for. And they did have a lot of dollar bins, but again, we were a little bit rushed for time. So I didn't spend a lot of time looking through dollar bins. What I did see was stuff, 80 stuff, 90 stuff, and a lot of more modern stuff. And I'm always searching these bins for some like the old stuff. So I only came out of there with one book, and it's really goofy. One of the cheesiest, like crappiest 90s promotions of all time. Still sealed in the bag. It's Protectors #5. This was a really horrible gimmick cover where one of the characters gets killed in the issue with a laser beam. And so what they did was they drew this horrible gory cover where the guy's got a hole in his chest. And then they actually punched a hole through the comic, right? And the thing is, they didn't plan the comic around doing this. There was an earlier comic. I don't remember if it was a Milk and Cheese issue maybe, but it was like an indie book where someone had actually drawn the whole book around doing something like this, and then they used like a rifle and actually shot a hole in every copy, like one by one. But they had designed the whole book around there being a hole in it. They didn't do that here. So this hole goes right through the art. It goes through word balloons, so you can't read what's happening. It's basically like they just damaged their own comic. So it's really stupid. I used to have a copy of this before because at one point I had a full run of Protectors, which is from Malibu. Kind of wish I still did have that because Protectors, again, it's from Malibu, but they actually use a number of public domain Golden Age superheroes, which again is an interest of mine because of the Crimebusters and the other comics I do, like Cthulhu versus Uncle Sam, where I use a lot of public domain Golden Age heroes. I wasn't really aware of that at the time I was reading Protectors back in the 90s. So it's something where now I have a different kind of interest in this series. I remember liking this series, but now I'm really curious to see what I wasn't picking up on at the time. So maybe I'll crack this out of this stupid bag and read this stupid comic. Because I have a sense that just from my memory that the stories on these are not bad, and this gimmick is really kind of like not necessary. But I saw that and I had to pick it up just because it's such an infamously stupid gimmick cover that I also have a little bit of nostalgia for. So that's the only comic I got there. But there were some other purchases on these trips. Since I only got these 3 comics, I did want to show you a couple other things. You'll see in the later videos that we ended up going to several more comic book stores. Over the course of the trip, I think we ended up at 5 comic book stores. And each of the other 3 that we went to, we're going to have a full video about each of them. But at all of these stores, my wife was buying stuff. And so I've got a big pile of all the stuff my wife bought from all the different stores. I'm going to show that to you in a moment. One other thing I wanted to show, though, that I got on this trip is that we're meeting my in-laws, and my father-in-law was nice enough to give me this comic that he had actually bought just to read for himself. It's called Ithaca, and it's a horror comic. Let me show it to you here. It's got, speaking of gimmick covers, it's got this shiny foil thing. And this is issue 1 of Ithaca. And Ithaca is a series that I've seen before because it was Kickstarter. It's a Kickstarter book. So I always like to see Kickstarter books that have gotten out into the wild. So like if I'm at a comic book store, or even one time at an antique mall, I found a book that I knew was like a small run Kickstarter book. But I always like to see this. I don't know where my father-in-law found this, but it was cool to get to see this because I saw the campaign for this when it was live on Kickstarter, but I hadn't backed it at the time. So it was really cool to sort of get this and finally get a chance to check it out. So that was really cool. Let me show you the stuff that my wife bought. So she bought a few individual issues, and then she bought a big pile of trades because of the funny thing is that we joke about a lot is we go to these comic stores, and a lot of times my wife ends up spending a lot more money than I do because I end up buying like 4 books out of the dollar bin that are like Charlton's from 1970, and my wife comes out with a giant pile of trades, that are like $15 or $25 each. So she did get a couple individual issues, so I'll start with those. She got the Sabrina the Teenage Witch Holiday Special, which has this great cover by Veronica Fish. Covers sell books. My wife is a fan of Sabrina. She really likes the TV show, but I'm pretty sure she bought this because she loved this cover from Veronica Fish, and I totally agree. It's a really cool cover. Veronica Fish is local, unless she's moved, which is possible, but last I knew she was still like a Central Mass person. She sometimes does like signings and stuff at my LCS in Worcester, so I'm a big fan of her art, so that's really cool. My wife also got these 2 interesting comics that I want to show here that we both found a little bit weird. It's Betty Page numbers 1 and 2 from Dynamite. So here's issue 1. You can see that it's Betty Page on a little scooter, and she's in Rome. Looks like the Trevi Fountain behind her. And then issue 2 has this retro cover with the 2 Bettys looking at each other. What was a little bit strange about it is, Betty Page obviously is, known for her risque pinup photos from the 50s, which are adult themed. The comic is actually like this style is what the interior art is like, and my wife said it was kind of like a fun sort of adventure story that for her with the art and the style of the story skewed much younger. And she said, the story was fine, but it wasn't at all what she was expecting from a Betty Page comic. But also, a lot of the other covers, most of the variant covers are very adult, sort of Betty Page, drawn or even photo in lingerie and like suggestive adult poses. And then you have the interiors, which are, again, this sort of cartoony, sort of fun art style with like this sort of fun, peppy, adventure story inside that has no adult content. And so there was some cognitive dissonance for both of us, just in terms of like, it's just not what you expect from Betty Page. And so they're marketing it to the Betty Page fans obviously, with not just the title, but with the other variant covers. And then the story in the interior is a completely different type of comic. So, yeah, it was just weird. So she wasn't a huge fan of these, but maybe, I don't know. If you're a Betty Page fan and you've read this, what did you think? Let us know, because I'm curious to hear that. Here's some of the trades. I don't know too much about most of these. I've only got a couple comments on some of them, so I'll go through them pretty quick. First of all, there's Bliss from Sean Lewis, Caitlin Yarsky, Ari Plachinsky. This trade and the following one, Coyotes, which is also from Sean Lewis and Caitlin Yarsky. Both of these we got it at a different store, and the store, which again, there'll be another video about this later, but the store owner is Sean Lewis's uncle. So he had like all this stuff by Sean Lewis. So he was promoting his nephew's stuff. This is called Mine. It's a celebration of liberty and freedom for all, and benefiting Planned Parenthood. So the sales of this, some of the proceeds go to Planned Parenthood. So my wife, definitely wanted to get a copy of this. It's got a lot of big creators in it, like huge list of creators, too many for me to name, but I recognize a lot of the names. Neil Gaiman. I see Paul Levitz, Trina Robbins, Louise Simonson, Denny O'Neil, Mindy Newell, like a lot of like big names, recognizable figures. So it's got a lot of big talent in here. A lot of different art styles and types of stories and stuff. So I haven't read this one, but it looks like it's got a lot of big creators involved. Speaking of big creators, here's a Wonder Woman. It's called Wonder Woman Warbringer, the graphic novel. And this is listed as a DC graphic novel for young adults. It also says it's based on the New York Times bestselling novel by Leigh Bardugo, but it's adapted by Louise Simonson with art by Kit Seaton. Again, my wife hasn't read this yet. Once she reads it, I might read it as well, depending on what she thinks of it. Because, of course, I am a Wonder Woman fan. Here we have Maestros. Steve Scroce? I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name, but I've read it. Dave Stewart. This is from Image. In fact, I think I might have the first issue of this, actually. Now that I'm holding this and looking at it, I think I got the first issue of that in some kind of like grab bag. Here's Clear from Scott Snyder and Francis Manapul. My wife's not, I've said this before, but she's not really familiar with any of the creators. So when she's buying these, again, the covers sell books. She's looking at the art style. And so she flips through the book. She's looking at the art style and she's reading the synopsis on the back to see what the story's about. So she's not judging these, almost never knows once in a while, rare occasions, she'll recognize a name from something else that she's read, but almost everything she's picking up because it just looks cool. Such as Shirtless Bear Fighter by Jody LaHoop. Don't know if I'm getting that right. And Sebastian Gerner. Now, my wife did read this while we were on our trip, and she absolutely loved it. So she thought it was hilarious. She's going to be giving copies to other people we know, and she's definitely already out there looking for the next collection. I've heard of this book before. It's from Image, but I've never read it, but I'm going to be reading it because my wife really loved it. So we got Crossing Midnight, The Sword in the Soul, Mike Carey, Jim Fern, Jose Villarrubia. Now, several of these are books that she did get at, again, another store where they had like rows and rows and rows of long boxes of graphic novels that were all marked down to $5. So she really stocked up on a bunch of these there. Here's a Cinderella, Fables Are Forever, which is a spin-off from Fables. I actually read these issues when they were coming out because I was reading Fables at the time, but I don't really remember too much about it. Although if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz is like the one of the main antagonists, but I don't really remember. We got last couple Bolero from Wyatt Kennedy, and Luana Vecchio, and this is it's a kind of art style that my wife gravitates towards. And then finally, there's something from Aftershock called Insects. Marguerite Bennett and Ariella Cristantina, which is this here. And some kind of dark romantic fantasy thing. Don't know anything about it. So anyway, those are the books that my wife got. So a lot of interesting stuff. She has different tastes than I do, but it's always cool to see what she gets. Some really cool comic stores to check out. So let me know what you think down below. Again, this is the first of several videos that are going to be from this trip. Again, sometime soon we'll have the bonus video, which will be dropping on a Wednesday, where I'm opening these packs of the Lorcana, which I don't know anything about. So you're going to see me open those live on that. And who knows, maybe I get good stuff, maybe it's crap. I've recorded that video already and I still don't know. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, maybe you'll find it cool. But I've got 3 more store visits, 3 great stores that I got a lot of cool books in. And again, these stores are also cool. Like any store that's got an X-Men #1, they're gonna have good stuff. It's just I just didn't happen to find stuff for me. But the other 3 stores that are each gonna have individual videos on, I bought some really cool stuff at all 3 of them. So those will be coming in short succession here. Can't wait to show you that other stuff. And I can't wait to see what you think of the stuff that my wife and I bought from these stores. So that's it for this time. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time.